Hello from Poland and welcome to Sorted English Podcast with your host Khalid. In today's episode, I'll share with you my views on traveling around the world and hopefully I'll talk you through some of its fundamental benefits to individuals. I'll place a sharp focus though on my very own experiences, including all the ups and downs I went through. But before I embark on our today's topic, I'd like to remind you that the aim of this podcast is twofold. On the one hand, it should provide you with some insight into how traveling could widen your horizons. And on the other hand, this should upgrade your English level as you are bound to learn more sophisticated expressions throughout the whole podcast. You can always join us on YouTube for more videos and vlogs, particularly about Poland and the beautiful Polish culture. I always thought that only those loaded people were able to afford traveling. But I was wrong. Yes, at the first glance it may appear like that, a money-consuming hobby. Not until I was a university student had I discovered the hidden truth that one can travel the world on a very thin budget. You don't happen to need much, do you? I've been to different countries and most people presumably perceive me as lucky and often believe I'm flush with cash. In fact, I am a very simple, humble teacher who sometimes can't make ends meet, and I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth either. The thing is, I grab those little opportunities I get on my way. Was it luck? I can't tell. Do I believe in luck? Don't think so. After all, this could be an inviting topic for another podcast. Frankly speaking, I can't recall any experiences of traveling for pleasure with my family in my childhood. Not because of my memory lapses, as I have to face it. I'm getting long in the tooth. No, not at all. I reckon it's because of the rarity of such activities back then. You know, having an extended family is always a tremendous challenge to the family breadwinner, especially when one person is the only one who brings back home the bacon. And it was my father in our case. And then my first travel experience was when I moved to high school. I was a 16-year-old innocent boy. It was summer and I was given some quid, sufficient for a week or so. And of course, I was sent to Belfast to stay with my uncle as I was still under the age. I think it's common among families. Either somebody accompanies you or you are sent to a family member. A journey that I remember was full of excitement because finally I could be kind of independent, of course temporarily. Nevertheless, it was needed, and since then I knew that traveling was my second nature. I must confess, however, that real travel adventures began the moment I stepped at the university's gateway. Whether on purpose or not, I ended up attending a university that is a 6-hour travel from my parents. It was like I wanted to flee away to Glee, as we say, and go as far as possible so that I could easily discover other regions that I'd never been to. And this stage was a turning point as I increasingly relied on myself in all aspects of life. I traveled from my pocket money, and this had a different value. Of course, we do value our money. Mind you, traveling for pleasure among university students in the early noughties was not as popular as one might assume because, indeed, it was financially a crippling burden for many, myself included. Yet, the burning desire and dogged determination I had to discover every nook and cranny of my beloved country made me find other ways and other alternatives to travel with little damage to my shoestring budget. At first, I performed some seasonal onerous work, mostly at the weekend. Anything you can think of. I cleaned up plates. I peeled off potato in a local McDonald's. I helped at the construction site. I worked as a shop assistant. I was a gardener assistant, working as a carpenter for a few hours. You name it. I wasn't earning much, yeah, but I made some savings which I fully invested in very short trips. And the joy I got from each trip wiped away all the pain I had from work. Little things matter, and little things made me happy. I used Couchsurfing for having a free accommodation with fellow team members, and it worked very well. Then I had to spend some pennies on my food and the rest on transport and other sightseeing fares, tickets, souvenirs, and the like. Having said this, I'm not promoting any of such solutions as things have changed. Back then, only few people were engaged and trust was a thing. Of course, at a point, I had enough of performing strenuous tasks. I think thanks to some university courses, I used my critical thinking and thought of promoting a campaign. A stroke of genius, wasn't it? Of course, it didn't come in quite handy at all, but after a few botched attempts, my bait got an offer I wouldn't turn down ever, even in my wildest dreams. It was a travel agency that agreed to partially fund some of my travel over the UK for a very short time, of course. It was a very limited period of time. In return, I promoted this airline service among friends. It's just a win-win situation. And you know what? This made me go big. And I also had done some charity work, and some of those organizations offered us some trips for free because basically we were members. So the number one thing you get when you travel is tolerance towards others who are very different from you or have different stances than yours. It's amazing because you embrace all the kind of differences people have. You become a good listener. You listen carefully to what others want to say, and rarely ever would you leap to conclusions. And literally, a lot of misunderstanding comes from all those misconceptions and conclusions which most people draw to. Yet, thanks to traveling, you learn how important it is to get the right information, and you are brave enough to ask more questions. Another thing is, and let's face it, some people are reserved and seem very shy in social relations, and when they start traveling, they are likely to come out from their shell, from their comfort zone. So this also can help with your personality, especially if you discover traveling at an early age of your life. This brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks for listening to Sorted English Podcast with your host Khaled. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the benefits of traveling to individuals. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.